this world, as one of the early wise men said, "Ad-dunya sa'a faj'alha ta'a." This world is but a fleeting moment. Fill that moment with obedience to Allah. So we obey Allah. We obey Allah whether Trump is in power, whether Obama's in power, whether Biden's in power, had Harris won, whether Harris is in power. If some miracle and divine intervention happened in Jill Stein, who got almost not even 0.5% of the electorate, but it doesn't matter. Our job is to worship Allah and to call people to the worship of Allah. And I think a lot of people are so depressed and so crestfallen because we're not doing our job generally. And so because we're not doing our job, we're depending on others. So we're depending on the Democrats. We're depending on Joe Stein. We're depending on allies and the intersectional grid of oppressed and marginalized communities. So we're depending on the LGBTQIAP plus folks. We're depending on the leftists. We're depending on Bernie Sanders. We're depending in many instances on everyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ourselves. So we have to, number one, put things in perspective. This kind of mood that we see, this was the mood after Uhud. The Muslims were down because there was a victory. And then the defeat came out of this jaws of victory. You know, they say they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. Here it was the opposite. The Quraysh, they snatched the victory from the jaws of defeat. And the opposite was true for the Muslims. And the Muslims are limping back into Medina. The hypocrites are ridiculing them. You know, the Jews are ridiculing them. There's still a lot of Jews in Medina. And so at that low moment, Allah revealed, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. Don't be weakened and don't be saddened while you are uppermost if indeed you are believers. And so don't be weakened, brothers and sisters. لا تهنوا. Don't be weakened because your job, our job as Muslims, as an ummah, as a community here in North America, it's not contingent on who holds political power. It's not contingent on whether people have a favorable or disfavorable view of Muslims. It's not contingent on whether there's a demagogue at the helm who's stirring up the kind of anti-Muslim animosity that you saw in those clips. It's dependent on our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the strength of our iman.